episode 241.
Broadcasting from Melbourne, Australia, this is the Unshackled Waves with Tim Wills, brought to you by theunshackled.net.
Hello everyone, welcome to Election Eve, another special Friday Night Live episode of the show. It's the final countdown to the most turbulent election certainly I've ever witnessed, and joining me to give our final thoughts and predictions, I'm joined by Australian Meditations. Welcome again.
Hey mate, hi everyone, hope everyone's doing well.
Now you've got one of your many flags behind you. Do you want to just give a brief overview of what it is? Well, to the people who are watching, obviously our listeners will need a bit more of a description.
Yep, I'll just move to the side just for a couple of seconds. It's called the Federation flag. So I think it's self-explanatory. It became the symbol for federation. So in the 1880s to even before the 1880s, but especially in the 1880s when the Federation campaign and the constitutional conventions were well underway, it became a symbol for federation. And this flag was displayed at a lot of, rallies and meetings, etc. Even Sir Henry Parkes, one of our founding fathers, used this flag. And basically, there was like a cultural Australian bloom in the 1880s. Henry Lawson, a lot of Australian poets were promoting Australian nationalism and Australian culture, and I think that definitely influenced Federation itself. And this flag, I think, is beautiful because I think it incorporates Australia's roots, which are fundamentally British in terms of our systems of laws, etc. Represented by the Union Jack. I'm just trying to point at it. Yep. And then you've got the Eureka stars, the Southern Cross stars. That's obviously quintessentially Australian. So that's why I personally would love this flag. And if there was, not that I would want to change the flag at any moment, I think the flag is awesome. But if we really had to change the flag, I would back this flag or the Eureka flag to be the official Australian flag, and not these stupid kangaroo designs or whatever they're coming up with these days.
And that flag, it looks strangely familiar. I've seen it in some form recently.
Yes, it's the official emblem of the Fraser-owning Conservative Nationals Party, which I think people should vote for in the Senate. I don't 100% agree with them ideologically, but given that they're the best choice, then I actually called the AEC a few days ago to see who's running in my electorate. He's running in the Senate, and in the upper house and in the lower house. The most right-wing candidate in my electorate is a One Nation candidate. So I'll be voting for those two parties. Not necessarily because I agree with 100% what they say, but obviously you don't have much of a choice. You got to vote for the party that represents you the most, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage most people on the right to try and vote for a minor party, but like it or not, the Prime Minister is either going to be Scott Morrison or Bill Shorten. Now, obviously, the Liberals are the less of two evils, and it's good that Scott Morrison has been up for the fight this election, even though he's cucked on a lot of cultural issues.
Yeah, well, he's definitely, cut on a lot of issues, and, I just think that, I think the polls are accurate. They're very tight at the moment. Last time I checked, it was 49-51, two-party preferred, and Bill Shorten has actually increased his, what's that one called with the preferred Prime Minister?
Approval rating.
Yep.
So, yeah. Do you want to go through the polls now? We may as well.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I'll just bring up on the screen. So this is from the Twitter account, the Ghost 2 Votes. Now, I'd encourage anyone who follows Australian politics to follow this account. I've just enlarged it there. So at the top, they've got Ipsos, which that appears in the Fairfax papers. So that has LNP 49, ALP 51. So that points to a narrow Labor victory of about one or two seats. Then further down there's all the individual polls. Then there's, if I go down further, too many polls here. Oh yeah, here we go, Galaxy. So they've got two-party preferred, LNP 49, ALP 51. Galaxy appears in the News Corp tabloids. And then we also have, if I go down further, this shows how many polls there are this week. Oh, essential polls. So LNP 48.5, ALP 51.5. And then earlier in the week we had Morgan poll, which I think is a pretty crappy poll. So LNP 48, ALP 52. They've often got things wrong. So that's just the two-party preferred there. So as you can see, it's not the Labour victory that everybody thought was inevitable, that there was going to be a Labour wave.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that obviously Bill Shorten was trying to channel It's Time speech by Gough Whitlam. And I think he's trying to use these Labour luminaries, even to a certain extent, Bob Hawke as well, who recently passed away. From what I understand, he recently met Bob, and Bob asked him what the chances are for Labour Party winning. And apparently Bob Hawke was going to be watching the election live stream. This is because Bill Shorten mentioned this to the media. So I think that it's interesting how political parties, use, the old guard to try and win an election. Even the Liberals do it when they roll out John Howard to campaign in certain marginal electorates. Nothing wrong with that. But Labor, I think they do it better, because I think Labor has a different sort of history where, from the right side of politics, where they're like for the people apparently, and the whole their identity is a lot stronger, I think, and they have more sort of figureheads like your Paul Keating, your Bob Hawke, etc. The Liberals only have John Howard and not really anyone else to look up to, but Labor has more sort of figures to look up to, especially in recent times.
Well, with the Liberals, when Malcolm Fraser was alive, or he was an apostate from the party, he, in his later days, went very far left, and he even endorsed Sarah Hanson-Young in 2013. This election, we've got another former Liberal leader, not Prime Minister, John Hewson, backing Sarah Hanson-Young. So a lot of these Liberal leaders turn left later in life, and so become alienated from the party. But Labor and the left, they're all about solidarity. That's why you had Rudd and Gillard walk on together, leave their knives at the door, and even Paul Keating, even before Bob Hawke passed away, was saying nice things about Bob Hawke.
Yeah, that I actually can confirm that. I saw a video today where they basically confirmed that Paul Keating and Bob Hawke had buried the hatchet, so to speak, a long time ago, which is fair enough. I mean, that's good. But yeah, when I read that thing about John Hewson, mate, I was it didn't surprise me, because we know what he's like now. But I just struggled to comprehend how on earth a Liberal Prime Minister, even the moderate ones, like the small L's, like your Josh Frydenberg's types and stuff, who are the equivalent of Josh Frydenberg today would be, the John Hewson of 20 years ago. They're moderates. How the hell they can just forget about all those small L Liberal principles and support a socialist party? Basically, they're socialists, the Greens, basically. I don't know how they can ignore, the free market economics and all that kind of stuff, and even to a certain extent the traditional values, which I'm sure they believed in to a certain extent back in the 90s, John Hewson, etc. And then all of a sudden back a party that is completely goes against all those values. Like, I just don't. It's a really big pendulum swing, and I just don't understand why they would do that.
Not just that, but endorse the worst Green in the Senate, Sarah Hanson-Young.
Absolutely, it's insane. But and I guess Matty Rose has spoken about this, not this particular topic, but he's done a lot of good videos where he basically, talks about how the Liberals have just completely, you know, gone away from their base. And he made a good point about Fraser Anning and how Fraser Anning made a point that he's basically more in line with the original Liberal Party than the Liberal Party is, because he supports sort of, you know, tighter immigration, and Malcolm Fraser supported the White Australia policy. Not that Fraser Anning does, but he's on the cusp of supporting the White Australia policy, I would say. And he's got more in common, Fraser Anning, with Robert Menzies than the Liberals do, you know, especially when it comes to the economy. He wants to cut taxes a bit more than the Liberals. You know, he supports tighter immigration, which is what Menzies supported. He's totally against gay marriage, which I'm certain Menzies would have been against. And the only reason why we don't know what Menzies believed about that issue is because it wasn't even an issue back then, because everyone was against it and no one was campaigning for it. So it's safe to say that, you know, Menzies was against gay marriage.
Well, he passed the original Marriage Act in 1961, and it was the one that John Howard had to amend in 2004 to make sure that same-sex marriage couldn't take place, because back in, as you mentioned, back in 1961, they were just, everyone accepted that marriage was between a man and woman. We don't think that, like, 40 years later, this act is going to be interpreted to have same-sex marriage. So, yeah,
exactly.
That was sort of the idea at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the American Constitution, where there's a debate, you know, about how the American Constitution should be interpreted. There are some lawyers who say that, you know, the Second Amendment should be like the one about we have a right to bear arms. That the way that it was written back then is like it meant guns that were like, you know, muskets and stuff like that. You know, and then today, a lot of conservatives say, no, it means guns in all contexts, including semi-automatics and modern guns. But maybe if you ask the founding fathers about what kind of guns they would have said, maybe they would have said, no, we just want muskets. We don't want any other kind of guns. So obviously I know the answer to that because you can't go back in time and ask these people. But I guess it depends on the situation, how you interpret these things.
Yeah, let's not get started on US constitutional interpretation. But Scott Morrison, before he became Prime Minister, he was known as a conservative, though he became Turnbull's treasurer, and he was Turnbull's preferred candidate to be Prime Minister. And I know that when Scott Morrison first became Prime Minister, he tried to win those Conservatives back, said stuff like "safe schools makes my skin crawl," but now he's completely cucked. Like after like Christchurch, he's like, "Oh, I'm not, you know, just a Christian. I'm a Prime Minister for all religions." He wanted to, like, you know, I'm for all religious freedom, and basically saying all religions are equal. And then he's also, you know, cucked on. A year ago, he described Israel Folau as a man of strong character. Now he's completely thrown him under the bus, said his comments were grossly insensitive, and said nothing while he's been sacked today, Israel Folau, by Rugby Australia. Raylene Castle, who I call the goth chick, she's sacked him. Well, she's not even Australian. She's a New Zealander running Rugby Australia, sacking Australia's best player.
I know, it's ridiculous. And you know, I'm angry because Scott Morrison, he goes to that video of him where he allowed the media to film him at that Christian sort of show where he was singing some Christian songs.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an Orthodox Greek myself, Christian. We don't really do that, the whole singing and stuff, but I find it a bit tacky myself, but I understand that other people do that, that's fine. But if you're actually going to do that, you know, how come he's not supporting Israel Folau? I mean, he's literally channeling what the Christianity is all about. I know we've said it a million times, but it's actually true. The Bible does say that about homosexuals, etc. And he was just saying that. So if you're a Christian, Mr. Scott Morrison, why aren't you defending Israel Folau's right to have his voice and literally quote the Bible? If you call yourself Christian, you should be standing up for Christians and not a warped version of Christianity to fit your conception of what it is, to, you know, of what Australia should be, tolerant, and we shouldn't accuse gays and stuff, and we need to be nice to everyone. No, you know, religion is religion, and you know that's what you need to do. And I think it's funny because, for example, just a small tangent, in Britain, a lot of Muslims have kind of rioted against the safe schools version in Britain. They actually were against.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and that's good. As much as I don't think Muslims should exist in Britain, good on them because they're basically following their religion. They haven't changed their religion to suit the government, and the government actually, stopped the program from being taught in those schools because they couldn't handle the fact that so many parents were boycotting, were telling their kids not to go to school. So I think I would love to see a day in Australia where, politicians and the public alike can just accept what Christianity truly is and just take their interpretation of Christianity from the Bible directly and not from the broader socio-political zeitgeist that exists in Australia. Unfortunately, currently, that is a zeitgeist that consists of multiculturalism and tolerance and diluting, traditional values and basically promoting niceties and being tolerant and accepting people for who they are. Well, unfortunately, you can't always do that because it goes against Christianity and other fundamental issues and beliefs.
Bill Shorten, I would describe him as the ultimate fake Christian. I think he's a Catholic. He went to Xavier College, but he's on his second marriage, and he's got like a blended family, so he hasn't exactly lived up to that. And then he said he didn't believe in hell, and then he challenged Scott Morrison to say, "Oh, do you believe that gays are going to go to hell?" And Scott Morrison was like, "No, I don't believe that." And this is just a distraction from taxes.
Exactly, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so certainly, Bill Shorten, he's trying to have I said this last night on the Uncockables. He's trying to have it both ways, saying like, "Oh, I like religious freedom, but I also love my progressivism."
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is about these people is that I saw a video just before from Cory Bernardi's YouTube channel, and it was recently uploaded today. I recommend everyone go check out. Not that I support them, but they've got some good videos every now and then. And this woman, who's apparently a candidate for Australian Conservatives, she mentioned that Bill Shorten, etc., and Julie Gillard, they're all members of the Fabian Socialists. Okay, and that's what they are. They pay lip service to religious freedom to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, they're socialists and they want to take away people's freedom and they want to basically promote their agenda at the expense of people's religious freedoms. And that's the thing that we need to be worried about. They basically just make the point that, they're just as bad as the Greens, basically, because they're the party that actually make a big difference. The Greens, they annoy on the fringes and stuff, but they'll never really govern the country properly, as in their own right. But Labor's probably more dangerous than the Greens, according to this woman. And I kind of agree with it, because they're the ones who can actually affect change. And they're basically doing what the Greens want, maybe 70% of what they want when it comes to these things. And Matty Rose made a good point about how when Labor does come to power, because I think that they will come to power, 85% chance they'll win tomorrow, they're going to pass more laws against banning anti-gay speech and even probably expanding 18C. I know Anne Ali wants to expand it to be more protective of people's religion. And we've got to be worried about this because even lawyers, get this, even lawyers have come out to condemn these proposed changes to these laws. I mean, lawyers are so left-wing, especially the human rights ones, and even they're worried about this. When you got lawyers worried about freedom of speech and stuff, that's when you know that these proposals are really crazy, because usually they're the ones who promote this sort of stuff because it gives them more money and more jobs, because it means more court cases for them. But they've actually realized that it gets to a point where you're literally banning people's speech, even speech that's actually harmless. You know what I mean?
Well, those civil liberty groups that have been set up, they've got to come out for free speech occasionally. But yeah, we've seen during this campaign, Labor propose, as you said, expanding 18C to include all characteristics. And then, of course, you've got the Greens who said they want Sky News shut down for hate speech, shut down Andrew Bolt, Chris Kenny, and Alan Jones. Probably Alan Jones is probably the most solid of those three, but the other two are pretty cucky, and it sort of makes you wonder, well, if they're going to go after them, like, what are they going to do to streams like this?
Absolutely. I think it was Di Natale who said about, passing new media regulation. That's another thing they want to do. Media regulation laws to stop the likes of Andrew Bolt and even Chris Kenny, who I think is the biggest cuck on news, and they want to stop there. They think that they're hateful. I mean, Bolt's a freaking saint compared to what I say on my YouTube channel and stuff and what I've seen Fraser Anning. I mean, imagine how I'm going to be affected, and even you guys and perhaps, Fraser Anning and Pauline Hanson. It's ridiculous.
Throttle Groomer said Labor will make drinking milk illegal. Well, who knows? They probably get the vegan preferences.
Yeah.
I mean, the vegans, they're out again in Perth harassing people at some random restaurant.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Not the first time, obviously, but I love how people just watch and just film these idiots as if they're going to change them from ordering something from the menu. It's just ridiculous.
But I think that's the biggest challenge for, because, the left, Bill Shorten, Daniel Andrews, Mark McGowan, they enable the radicals to demand more and more things. And that's why Bill Shorten is proposing such a radical left-wing agenda, because they've enabled all the way. But I just wonder if is Bill Shorten going to give up, steak and milk?
Yeah, well, as they say, when the Greens sneeze, Labor catches a cold. We should never forget that, because they always annoy and they always they're aggressive on the fringes. And when it comes to votes in the Senate, they do these deals. They say, "We'll vote with you on this if you do this." That's the way it works, unfortunately. And and I'm very curious to see what happens in the Senate, because I think there's an 85% chance that Labor will win the election, but I'm very curious to see the configuration of the Senate, because I think that it'll be interesting which parties hold the balance of power. And what I don't like is all these lefty independents who claim to be independent, but they're actually lefties, like your Karen Phelps, and also what's the other woman who betrayed the Liberal Party, Julia Banks? Julia Banks.
I'm enrolled to vote in Flinders, and she was right down the list. She actually blocked me on Twitter because she blocked her former Liberal female colleague Jane Hume, because Jane Hume kept trolling her, pointing out her hypocrisy, and so she got blocked. Yeah. And so all of us decided to join in to just troll her, and we all got blocked.
Yeah, and I don't like how all these moderate Liberals in the party campaigned for people like Julia Banks, and also what was that other woman that resigned? The really big woman who was pregnant and had a baby.
Kelly O'Dwyer.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, she's retiring.
Yeah, she retired. I understand that, but she was very critical of apparently the sexism in the Liberal Party. That's what I'm referring to.
And she wanted One Nation put last on Liberal how to vote cards.
And these moderates, they claim to be representing the Liberal Party, but they're the first ones to actually betray the Liberal Party. Now, of course, with Cory Bernardi, that's obviously a different situation. Obviously, you could say that he betrayed the Liberal Party, but I would say that the Liberal Party betrayed him, because he's a Liberal Party. Think about it. He's a Liberal Party, the true Liberal Party. It's the Liberal Party that have betrayed him and moved away from his values, just like the whole Menzies thing and how they moved away from Menzies. They kept coming to the centre, and some of the hardcore libs decided to go away. But the reasons why that he left was different to what Julia Banks left. She did it out of spite and for other reasons. It wasn't, for other reasons. Yeah.
She and Julia Banks and Alex Turnbull, they're running probably what I've seen the most vitriolic, spiteful campaign ever. I'm not sure if you've seen Alex Turnbull on Twitter, but wow, that's some vitriol there. He's so crass, and he's had to apologize for a few tweets, but it's just incredible. It's something to behold.
Yeah, but I think he's doing robocalls. So Alex Turnbull did a robocall to some electorate, encouraging people to vote against the Liberals or something. I didn't really see it. Did you see that at all?
Yeah, I heard about it. It's like, well, I'm Malcolm Turnbull's son. Oh, but, you know,
Yeah.
apparently Malcolm Turnbull's got nothing to do with this campaign.
Exactly. And when Malcolm Turnbull didn't campaign for the Liberal Party after he left, you know, that's another thing, you know.
Yeah. Oh, he campaigned with Gladys because, well, she's a left-wing Liberal. So he does support some Liberals.
I'm talking at the federal election, or sorry.
No, he hasn't done it. I think he ran into Dave Sharma, the Wentworth candidate, at some bus stop. I'm not sure if it was like it was coordinated or they just bumped into each other and Dave Sharma like got the camera out quickly so he could get like sort of seem like Turnbull was endorsing him.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like it's both like these moderates who we mentioned, you know, Kelly O'Dwyer and Scott Morrison, the Conservatives. Like both factions have betrayed the Liberal Party, and that's why you've got all of these minor parties on the right. You've got One Nation, you've got obviously Fraser Anning's Conservative Nationals, Australian Conservatives, the Great Australian Party, the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party. You've also got Rise Up Australia, the Love It or Leave It Party. There's so much discontent on the right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, and I don't like this because the same thing happening in Australia is happening in Greece, because I follow Greek politics as well, and the segmentation of the nationalist vote is there's so many parties out there. I mean, in Greece there's like literally 30, 40 parties that are far right, and it's just people just want to be the leader, and I think that it's been happening here as well with Fraser Anning, Conservatives, and all the other parties that are coming out. The Love It or Leave It party. Kruger, what's the name? The one
Kim Vuga.
Kim Vuga, yep. I just don't like it because they're pissing in the wind. I just think that we just need to somehow solidify. I remember, I'll put it this way. I remember I saw a Greek interview with some politician, some commentator, it was a nationalist commentator, and he says that all these right-wing parties in Greece, the far right, they just need to cease existing and just back the most successful far-right party, which in this case is Golden Dawn. So he basically suggested that you can maintain your own organisations like your UPFs and your, you know, Reclaim Australia organisations, but they should all feed into the political wing and the most strongest political wing, which is in Greece is Golden Dawn. And I just think that we need to have like one genuine nationalist party, okay, which represents us in the parliament. But Rise Up and all the other groups can still exist as an organisation, but not as a party. That way we're not segmenting the vote. But good luck getting that to happen, because on the one hand, Pauline Hanson supports abortion. Rise Up Australia would never support abortion. The Australian Conservatives never support abortion. Hanson isn't that supports the recognition of Indigenous Australians in the Constitution, but ALA doesn't, and I'm pretty sure the Conservatives don't do it either. I mean, all these issues are actually quite important and fundamental. And you have far-right parties that actually don't agree on these issues. So good luck trying to reunite them. It's unfortunate, but ideally it should happen where we all unite, but it's very unlikely because everyone has their own ego. Everyone has, you know, differences on certain policies. So, yeah.
Oh, it's the reason there's all this fracturing is because the major one, it at some stage always cucks. Like the communists have managed to take over the Greens. Like there was a splintering in New South Wales, but that's sort of been able to be contained. But like obviously Pauline Hanson, the reason why Fraser Anning has become so popular is because she's seen to have cut, especially since she recruited Mark Latham. Mark Latham, one of his conditions was removing any form of discrimination in the policy. Yes. So they no longer support a Muslim immigration ban. That policy has been killed, and then obviously they had Emma Eros run for, I call it in New South Wales, Mark Latham's One Nation Party. That was Mark Latham's endorsed candidate. Like there's certain conversations that Pauline she just doesn't want to have, which Fraser Anning is willing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And on Matty's Modern Life's channel, he uploaded a video today about Pauline Hanson calling Fraser Anning a racist and condemning Anning for being a racist because it's against black immigration. And it's just funny that you got people that should agree with each other disagreeing with each other. And obviously, I'm backing Fraser on this because I support what he's saying. But you would never expect Pauline Hanson, like the Pauline Hanson from 3 years ago, to come out and call someone a racist for not wanting Africans in Australia. I mean, she would never. I think it's more obviously just personal because Fraser Anning left. But it goes to show how much she's been influenced by the likes of Mark Latham and James Ashby, etc.
Yeah, I mean, Pauline, like, there's so many people who've fallen out with her party, and it is the way the party's structured, it's called a dictatorship around her and James Ashby, or it is Pauline Hanson's One Nation. So obviously, and she's been around for 25 years, and like she was the first to say this stuff. Like her inaugural speech when being swamped by Asians, she was right. I mean, fast forward 23 years, that's happened. It's not racist to say that. She was just describing what has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's just completely just denies it now. She doesn't even mention Asianization, and the rate of Asian migration has actually increased since she left. And I mean, you'd think that she, if anything, should be more vocal about it now, given the levels it's reached. I mean, she's cucked out, mate. She's absolutely cucked out.
And the Australian Conservatives, I think, sort of trying to be sort of like nice, like strawberry flavour, like conservatism. I don't think that's worked. I mean, sure, Cory Bernardi gets to go on, Sky News with Paul Murray, Andrew Bold, and Chris Kenny, but it's like, in reality, not many people watch that. And like, if you're sort of saying, oh, we should cut immigration by half and that's our policy, then you're not offering much. I mean, you may as well, volunteer for Craig Kelly or Jim Molan or Tony Abbott in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting because we might go back to the polls for a moment. Just go through the because I only went through the two-party preferred. So we have the essential primary vote breakdown. So LNP 38.5, ALP 36.2, Green 9.1, and One Nation 6.6. That interesting doesn't have United Australia Party. Now, if I go up to so many tweets here, where are we? I'll just go Ipsos primary vote, LNP 39, ALP 33, Greens 13%. I find that hard to believe. One Nation 4%, and United Australia Party 3%. Now, if I see if I can find Galaxy, because they've got all the different seats here. We'll get to the individual contests in a moment. Galaxy. Here we go. LNP 39, ALP 37, Green 9, One Nation 3, United Australia Party 3. Now, I'll just add up the 39 plus 37, 76, Green 85, One Nation 88, and plus 3 for UOP, that's 91. So there's still 9% other, and that is only in the lower house. And Matty made this point in his video that if like there's a certain percentage in the polls who are not voting for major parties, it's best to double that in the upper house where people get a good selection of minor parties to vote for. Yeah,
I would agree with that logic. And when it comes to these polls, I think you're right. The 30% is a bit out there. I would say my prediction is 9 to 11 for the Greens nationally, and I think that they'll probably lessen their votes since the last election, and Pauline Hanson will definitely get less votes since the last election. I think the winners will be a lot of the smaller parties. I think Fraser Anning will definitely get close. I don't know if he'll win, but he'll definitely get close to the threshold. But definitely the Greens and One Nation will be the losers, and the other parties will definitely get a lot of those votes.
I'm definitely ABC, anyone but Clive, because, well, he had a budget of $80 million for this campaign, and he tries to sell himself as, put Australia first, make Australia great. But at the end of the day, Clive, it's... He just goes whatever thinks will get him vote. Like he ran on like a conservative platform in 2013, and then when he got elected, he was having a press conference with Al Gore, and he kept the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and the Climate Change Authority. So he kept all those things in place. In fact, he blocked the initial repeal of the mining and carbon tax, which was his election manifesto. So who knows if he's going to go green again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he also wants to bring more refugees to Australia. Like
Yeah.
So he's weird. I just think that when it comes to Clive Palmer, my opinion of him is this: he's got no, like, you want politicians to have a sense of duty, and that stems from nationalism, which is the reason why they're in politics. I love my country. I want to make it better. I'll get into politics. With Clive, I don't really see that. I just see a person who's self-interested and who only went into politics because the Liberal Party wasn't doing his bidding in Queensland with all the mines and all that kind of stuff, and also to get back at China and all that kind of stuff. That's the main reason why I think he's doing this, because he's got more than enough money to do it. He's angry about all these things that have happened to him, and he's falling out with the Liberal Party. But apart from that, I don't see him genuinely trying to help this country move forward with his policies, because his policies, like you say, are absolutely all over the place. There's no ideology. There's no sort of fix. It's just whatever's just he thinks is, in his opinion, right, which isn't,
And shame on any nationalists who still think that he is worthy of their vote. I remember there was a time when Andrew Wilson and Radomir Corvetti were running his meme page, and so there was a lot of sort of nationalists saying, "Oh, he's our man," but I knew Clive's history. Like, he was never one you should gravitate towards.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing, at least that those two gentlemen left that party, but it was good while it lasted. They just used it as a vehicle to promote. Because I was part of that Palmer page. I don't know if you were part of that group.
Oh, the Palmy Army?
Yeah, the Palmer. Oh, that was hilarious, man. He got all these alt-writers posting the most hilarious memes, and I think that was awesome. So apart from the Palmer, the actual Palmer, the chicken Palmer that was invented when he came into politics, I actually had one of those when it came out. And also the meme page and all that kind of stuff. I think nationalists used him temporarily just to promote their shit, and then they moved on to Fraser running. So I think Clive Palmer was just like a meme for us for a bit. We just had a laugh with him. Now we're divorced, and we're going back to Fraser. And I reckon eventually Fraser Anning will, cuck out eventually in the long run, and then there'll be someone to replace Fraser who's even more right-wing than Fraser. So that's the way I see it. And I just don't know how long it will take. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Well, they got triggered over a Fraser Anning meme this week. Said, "Vote Labor if you want a Muslim family to move."
Which I think I saw. The British Party of the Conservatives, the Tories, said that the same thing about the Labor Party back in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon, and I just thought that meme was hilarious, and reading the comments as well. And I don't blame people for. I mean, that's pretty heavy. I mean, that I would be offended, if I was a Muslim. Obviously, if they said that. But people are worried. I'm worried. I mean, I would be worried if I had a Muslim neighbor. I mean, he's actually channeling what people think. I mean, a lot of people actually don't want a Muslim for a neighbor. So the fact that he's saying that means is that people are actually worried about that. And I thought in a democracy we should try and listen to the people, which is what he's doing.
And just going on that, I mean, do you recall seeing like when they have counter-terrorism raids and like, there's always like the hijab people like, pushing their hand in the camera, and they interview the neighbors, and like I had no idea what was going on. And so you know, be like that can happen. Like if you're a neighbor to a Muslim, you know, that sort of spectacle can possibly occur.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And apparently, the keffiyeh, you know, that keffiyeh thing, that where they wear that little thing on there, that like the turban thing. It's called a keffiyeh. The Palestinians use it. I don't know if you saw, but that guy who took Avi Yemini to court sued the New South Wales police or something because they used it in one of their like fake raids, like training raids. And they said that they even got the lawyers, the discrimination commission or something, I don't know, some organisation to condemn this, and it was found that it was likely to offend and stereotype the Muslims. And they're trying to say the whole point, because I don't know people in the army. I've got, you know, actually I don't want to say anything because I might, you know, whatever. The point is that I was also in the cadets for 4 years, and we did similar things like mock raids and stuff on bivouac. And I remember my CO told me that when it comes to this sort of training, we're going to make it as realistic as possible. So wearing the keffiyeh, there's a reason for that, because you want to make it as realistic as possible. It might seem unnecessary, but you know that scenario is actually a very likely scenario. So you got to make it as realistic as possible, and that will make Australia more safe because it means that the police will know what's happening and be able to deal with that. But apparently, the human rights lawyers and all these lefties and all these Muslims, they just can't hack that their people, are causing terrorism, and we're just trying to train for that. And apparently, we're the bad guys, and we got taken to court for it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing to take note of. And now they're not going to show in these polls what the Fraser Anning primary vote is going to be. They wouldn't they wouldn't dare because they wouldn't want to reveal that. But yeah, it's going to be something to watch. Not just because of preferences, but just to see like how far these candidates on all the right wing parties can get.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'll be very curious at the configuration. I'm not going to... I think Maddie invited me to the live stream tomorrow, but I can't make it because I'm a bit busy. But, I actually want to see what the Senate... That's what's important to me. Because, that Liberal Labor, I couldn't care less. It's the Senate that matters. I want to see how people are voting in the Senate. So that's going to help us understand the electorate more.
Because if it is a Labor majority government, you want a right-wing bloc at the Senate that's going to block things, like block the franking credits and the negative gearing, and like stop all the proposed hate speech laws, because the coalition in opposition, they might actually get a spine and support free speech again.
Yeah, my fear, my prediction at the same time is like a 5 to 8 lead victory for Labor in the lower house, and then the crossbench being dominated by all those independent lefties like your Julia Banks and your Karen Phelpses.
Oh, well, they're running in the lower house.
Oh yeah, well, regardless, they're the equivalent of those people in the Senate. I forgot their names, but they do exist, and that's what I'm really worried about.
I would certainly like to see Darren Hinch. He's up for re-election. I'd like to see him go. I mean, he got a lot of populist support, because he was against pedophiles and sex offenders, but, he's been a massive cuck while he's been in there. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
And he said about Fraser Anning, I hope you're soon gone. Wouldn't it be ironic if Hinch loses and Anning gets back in?
Yeah, and the one thing that I'm actually sad about is Leyenhelm leaving the Senate. I thought he was pretty good in the Senate. He's got the New South Wales politics, I think. But
no, he failed to get elected, so that's the end of his career. Liberal Democrats are still running candidates, but obviously they don't have a personality like Leyenhelm to sort of be able to sort of attract mass support.
Well, I hope he wins his court case against the beached whale. So pray for him to do that. Yeah.
Yes, that's still going on. It was funny comment because it all boils down to whether she said all men are rapists. That's the defamation, and she conceded on the stand that she did say that men act like morons and pigs. Yeah,
exactly.
But she's got a very good lawyer that's like singled it down to like one defamatory quote.
Mate, there's always, even with that egg boy thing, there's a lawyer that jumped up. All these lawyers, there's always these lefties who just happy to do it pro bono or whatever. And it's just so annoying that they just jump for the opportunity because they want that. They want to prove. They want to say, "Yep, I helped our side of politics because it'll help their career." Just annoying, you know.
We need to clone John Bolton a few dozen times.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've met him once. I went to Neil's court case in July last year. I saw you were there as well to film it. But I had the pleasure of meeting John just very briefly. But I think he switched on, and hopefully we need more like him because one day he's gonna go, and I hope there's other people that will replace him because I think there's gonna be more court cases in the future, especially when Labor passes all these laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the election took a last-minute twist with the passing of Bob Hawke last night, and yeah, like he was beloved not just by his own side, but by the Liberals as well, because he passed a lot of free market reforms, and he was a larrikin. I mean, he was an alcoholic, chain smoker, a womanizer. Like, you couldn't be any of those things in today's age. He was sort of like he had the personal life of Trump, and like this is why conservatives voted for Trump, not because he was a moral person, but because they saw him as like he doesn't hide anything, he's going to get the job done, and that's why Hawke won 4 elections.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Bob Hawke is that from 83 to 91, I think he was the longest serving Labor Prime Minister. And I think that obviously a lot of people, not so much my generation, but people older than me, remember him. I know my parents remember him, and a lot of Greeks definitely supported Hawke because he was a big supporter of the Greek community. But yeah, in terms of him as a person, like you're right, he was a womanizer. He drank a lot, but apparently, from what I remember, he stopped drinking to get into politics. Is that correct?
Yeah, when he became into politics, he gave it up because he was like he as soon as he left, he was back on. Everyone saw him. It was an annual tradition at the SCG test for him to down one of the beers there.
Yeah, and I saw a video. I saw all the news channels are doing sort of tributes to Bob, and there was one thing I guess the lefties would like. I don't like it, but he basically did the whole Springboks thing with the South African team, and he boycotted that or did something against that. And also, there was a situation in the Parliament where John Howard was talking about the rate of pace of Asianisation.
Yes, yeah, he said there's a concern with the level of Asian immigration, and Bob Hawke he wanted to pass like a non-discriminatory immigration motion, like a virtue signaling thing, and Liberals voted against it, but there was 3 backbenchers who embarrassed him and voted with Labor.
Yeah, but even before that motion was passed, I found out that there was like a cabinet meeting or some sort of meeting where they were discussing whether they should sort of challenge John Howard on this issue, because it's actually very popular. People were genuinely worried about Asianisation and the rate of pace of Asian migration, and Bob Hawke was like, he was advised by some of his advisors, maybe we shouldn't touch this because we might sort of lose points from the public on this issue. Maybe we shouldn't touch it because it's very popular to be against Asian migration at the moment. And apparently Bob Hawke said, don't tell me that, I want to know what I should do to change their mind. So he was the kind of person who would basically, he was very idealistic and he would do things regardless of whether it was popular or not. And he basically said that, according to him, he's going to stand up against racism because he thought it was racist to stop immigration or lower it. But according to his logic, it was worth getting people persuading people to change their mind about this issue rather than caving into it, basically. And I respect that. I don't agree with the context because I think we should stop Asian migration, but I respect that he had that belief and he doesn't cave into the popular opinion, because I don't do that either on other issues, obviously, like abortion and gay marriage. I don't cave into the public opinion, just like he didn't cave into the racist public, apparently. So I respect people doing that. I just don't agree with on what issue he did it on, basically.
And now the Labour camp are saying we've got to do this for Hawke now. They think that this will benefit Labour. But when Bill Shorten was talking about Bob Hawke, like, you know how everyone was like, oh, he got really emotional when he was talking about his mother. When like Bob Hawke's passing, it was just like, the Labour Party has lost its favourite son, and he was one of us. Like, it was pure robotic Shorten. Like, it was like he was reading a teleprompter or rehearsing something, and like that shows the contrast there, that Bill Shorten is the exact opposite of Bob Hawke. Bob Hawke, very like personable person. The Liberal Party, like this was a demonstration that they've got their act together this campaign. I'm not sure if you saw the thing on the Liberal Party campaign page, but they had a compilation of Bill Shorten's cringy moments. If you remember, there was that thing where he was shopping with some lady and said, oh, what's your favorite type of lettuce?
Jesus. Yeah, I didn't say that, but that is pretty funny.
Yeah, so Bill Shorten, he comes across as completely fake. You've probably seen Maddie's impersonations of Bill Shorten.
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny.
Yeah. And, you know, you just know that Shorten behind the scenes is a real nasty bastard.
Oh, absolutely. And he's just so weird. He's so awkward, man. I don't know how people criticize Tony Abbott for being awkward, and I guess he was in a lot of ways, but so is Shorten. I mean, there's something about these people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was thinking about, you know, the scandals that happened before. There's like 15 people that lost their positions, their candidacies, because of the social media posts.
Yeah.
I know you did a show about this where you touched on it, but I was thinking to myself, you know, these people were young when they said these things. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous, and maybe they deserve to be kicked out, but some of them weren't as bad. And you know, I think that one reason perhaps why in this day and age a lot of people, the right people, aren't coming into politics is because normal people say this sort of shit online, okay? And then when they say, okay, I'm going to go into politics, then all of a sudden they can't because they said certain things in the past. And all the people that are just weird and socially insular, and they're just like Malcolm Turnbull, who's very socially awkward. I've met Malcolm Turnbull, who's very socially awkward, very elitist. Bill Shorten's obviously very weird. You know, a lot of these people are just socially awkward and, you know, don't have the right values. But when the people with the right values and normal people who can actually have a conversation and be normal socially, then when they try to get to politics, they can't because they've written all this stuff online from 10 years ago. But all your, you know, wacky types, you know, who didn't grow up with social media, basically get in.
It reminds me, there was a news.com.au article today apparently exposing Fraser Anning's candidates or their horrid social media activity. The reporter was Gavin Fernando inside Fraser Anning's bizarre party. And it says, I'll make disparaging things about Muslims, LGBT, climate change. And like the whole thing, it's like, well, it's about like over 1,000 words. I didn't read it all because it was just like, you know, you go through it and you're just like, like, oh, it's a bit, you know, it's a bit embarrassing if you're in politics. Like, yeah, like, that's been like, that's why they haven't been able to make any scandal stick to Fraser Anning, because he hasn't cucked, and so all these other parties getting in trouble with their candidates because they're cucks. Fraser Anning has just like ignored it.
No, I was really, you're absolutely right about that, Tim. And I was really glad to see those two Fraser Anning blokes put some posters on that gay street with the Rainbow Road. And all lefties went crazy about that. But basically there was like a Rainbow Road and they went and put some Fraser Anning posters on the road. Yeah.
Well, it was, what is it today? It was probably there for Idaho Bit Day, which is the International Day against homophobia, transphobia, biphobia. And wasn't it interesting that Rugby Australia chose that day to sack Israel Folau for homophobia? And who could possibly be behind such a decision? Think of something in the air.
Well, the SJWs, I guess, who run rugby, and that Kiwi woman who does whatever.
And what's the name of the wallabies?
I don't know, what is it?
The Qantas Wallabies.
Qantas Wallabies, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, we wonder whether Alan Joyce is
Mate, this Joyce guy. I mean, every time he talks, it makes me agree with what that guy did with that pie. I mean,
so you're okay with?
Yeah, I'm all right. I mean, if the left are going to be all right with it, why not us? I mean, whatever. They've set the precedent. Screw it.
Yeah.
The point is that Alan Joyce is just so annoying because every time someone is going to say something, he'll cancel that Qantas lounge or something.
Yeah, cancelled Fraser.
It's just all this crap, and like from a guy from an airline that liaises with Saudi Arabia and all those Arab countries. It's just pure virtue signaling.
But it's all got lost in this should be like a big story the day before the election, but as we mentioned before, Scott Morrison is like, oh, I ain't touching that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get a final news poll later tonight, and then it's the big day tomorrow. The Uncockables, we have our special election night live stream starting at 6 p.m. when the polls close on the East Coast. You said that you're unable to make it, but it'll be myself, Maddie Rose, David Hiscock, Steele Archer, and James Fox Higgins will be popping in as well. We'll be going until probably about midnight. It'll be a long night because that's probably how long it will take to get a result.
Yeah. One last thing, just a bit off topic, but I do want to mention it because it is important for me as well. The reason why I can't make it tomorrow is because I'm spending the whole day preparing a speech for the Pontian genocide. If you don't know what that is, I recommend that everyone research the Pontian genocide. Basically, the reason why I want to say is because certain groups don't have a monopoly on suffering. It wasn't just the Jews who were persecuted. There are other groups that had genocides committed against them, and I think it's a shame that the Australian government doesn't recognise the Pontian genocide, but they recognise the Aboriginal one or the Jewish one. It wasn't just them that suffered. It was the Greeks, the Assyrians, the Armenians as well. And I just wish that they taught those genocides in the schools and didn't just focus on the Jews, because they don't have a monopoly on suffering. A lot of cultures have suffered in the past. So I'm actually doing a speech on the 19th of May, which is the anniversary of the Pontian genocide, and I recommend everyone get educated about the Armenian genocide and the Assyrians and the Pontians. The Pontians were basically Greeks who lived in Turkey back in the day. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
So you've got a good excuse for not coming tomorrow.
Absolutely, got a very good excuse, yes.
And my final prediction is I think Labor will just get over the line. I'm predicting around 77 to 79 seats. That's what the polls are indicating. You saw when I was going through that Twitter feed, all the individual poll results. All of the close marginal seats, the coalition is hanging on. So Labor's not going to win many seats. They don't need to win many seats to win, but they're not going to win many. Peter Dutton looks like he'll survive. Tony Abbott looks like he'll survive.
And Josh Frydenberg as well.
Yeah, the Greens, they're not going to capture the inner city of Melbourne, Higgins and Kooyong.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is good, as much as I don't like the Libs, it's better being a Liberal seat than a Green one.
The main thing is, as long as we have that firewall in the Senate, that conservative firewall that can block Labor and the Greens' extreme agenda.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm going to be praying for tomorrow. Hopefully it all goes well. Good luck with everyone. Hope everyone gets a sausage as well, and put the onions on the top, yeah?
Oh, Bill Shorten, doesn't he eat it from the middle? That's another weird thing he does.
I don't know, but Bunnings, because I helped make some do a sausage sizzle for my local RSL at my local Bunnings, and we purposely put the onions on top, I think, not on the bottom, just to make sure we pissed off the Bunnings staff, for that ridiculous rule they wanted to set. Yeah.
So make sure you are tuned into the Uncockables channel, but we'll also be broadcasting it on the Unshackled's main channel, so it'll be on multiple channels, so everyone has an opportunity to watch it. It'll be a good alternative to the mainstream media, even Sky News. They're not going to talk about the parties that we are, so it's certainly, we hope to be a refreshing alternative.
Yep, absolutely. I look forward to catching up on the show eventually, but hope it all goes well with the live stream, and yeah.
So thanks for joining me today. It was short notice. This was it sort of came to me a couple of hours ago, so I've appreciated you coming on.
No worries, mate. All the best. See you soon.
So thanks everyone for your company, and we'll see you tomorrow for election day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Unshackled Waves. Please visit theunshackledwaves.net for all the ways to subscribe and follow the show. Don't forget to pick up your free ebook at theunshackledbattlefield.net, and keep checking out theunshackled.net for all the latest news and commentary.